Today's project is to put rear brakes on our '07 Impala. This is a rust belt car, and it is getting pretty rusty underneath. Might provide us with some challenges. Well, we'll see how it goes. We purchased some Ray-Bestis brakes, bought them online. Got them home, and what do you know? Pads are made in India. Rotors, right from China. Where do you guys get your parts from, and where are they made? I'd like to buy some more American-made parts, but they seem harder and harder to find. Leave a comment. Let me know where you buy your stuff. We'll get started by removing the wheel. 19 mil. Typical rust belt car. Wheel doesn't want to come off. Corrode it on. Yep, a little force, so it comes off. I'll bring you in a little closer here. This rotor is really rusted. Put a pry bar across the studs here for we can get our Torx bolt out. It's a T30, it holds the rotor on. I'm going to tap that in with a hammer. Everything's pretty rusty. So we'll make sure that's in all the way. Surprised that came out as easy as it did. The heads of the bolts are even rusty. So rusty that the socket doesn't want to slide right on, so we'll tap that on with a hammer. Wrench on the end here, a little more leverage. Holy. That's tight. And it broke. Snapped off into the caliper bracket. That's the first time I've ever had one of those bolts break like that. It feels like this was coming out in one piece. there we go. It's still got a little grease on it, not much. Wow, everything's just so rusted. I'll see if I can get the impact in there for these. Oh, there you go. No, not gonna be able to get the top one. I got both of those off. The bracket should come right off. Wow, is that crusty. Yeah, not much brake pad material left in there. Of course, that's not going to slide off. That's going to hang up on the brakes too. I think I'll get the puller out and see if I can't get a puller on here to help. We've got the puller on the rotor. I think it's just hanging up on the parking brake. But everything's so rusty, you never know. We'll tighten it up and tap on it with a hammer and try to work it off. That's pretty tight. It is moving. Not very much though. starting to move a little better now. Here she comes. There we go. Wow, look at the rust inside of that. Next, we'll make sure that the piston pushes in on the caliper. I'm just using a C-clamp and old brake pad here. Yeah, that pushes in nicely. Yeah, that looks fine. Set that on the control arm here for it doesn't pull on the brake hose. So next I'm going to take a wire brush and clean up this hub face the best I can. You don't want any rust left on here to have the rotor nut set flat. We'll take a few minutes and do this. Really not that rusty compared to the rest of the car. Give this a squirt of brake clean up some of that rust residue. That should do it. Now I'll put some fluid film on here just to maybe keep the rotor from sticking so bad next time. Slide the rotor on. Where's our screw head? There we go. Up at the top. Goes on nice. Our Torx head bolt back in. There we go. And we got some brake clean for the rotor. On the back. Wipe that off and we'll be done. We got the rest of the parts we need. Got new brackets, new mounting pins for both sides, and the hardware kit. So we'll start assembling these and keep moving forward. So the brackets are the same for the left and right side, so there's no difference there. The bolts, there are two different styles of pins. These are the ones that snapped, so those go in the lower. These ones here go in the upper, and this little rubber goes on the end first. Okay, that just snaps on. These just slide right in here. went nice and easy by hand. We've got our brake caliper grease, so that's what we'll do next. Is we'll grease up the pinholes and underneath the clips. I should have waited to put these on. Come off easy enough when they're new, I guess. So. We'll put some on the pins as well, make sure we get that well lubricated before we don't run into the same problem again. Yeah, that's plenty of grease. Put our boots back on. Next, we'll grease up the surfaces underneath the clips. We do that to prevent the rust. In this climate here, you'll get the rust underneath, and so then the pads won't move back and forth. They'll freeze in place. So just enough to prevent the rust. Push your clips in. Next, we'll bolt the bracket on. First, though, we're going to put a little bit of Loctite on each bolt, and we have taken these over to the wire wheel, clean all the old Loctite off. Yeah, that's 13 mil that holds those on. The torque on these is 138 to 140 foot-pounds. From what I can find online, that seems pretty friggin' tight. Okay, we're going to call that good. Alright, so next we'll put the pads on. The one with the squealer goes on the back side, that goes up against the piston, and the squealer goes to the top. Just sit like that. Now next we'll clean up the faces on the caliper where the pads ride, and we'll get a little bit of grease on there as well. Just lightly enough to get some of the crusties off. Put a little bit of grease. Not sure how well you can see this, if at all. A little grease on the piston where it connects with the pad, and a little on here. Keep it from squealing or screeching. Take our bolts out. And 14 mil. I think the torque spec on these is 26, but probably look that up for yourself just to be sure. Always double check myself. Here we go. Still slides back and forth freely. Well, this side's basically done. These wheels were even a little tough to get off the car, So what I've done is I've cleaned up the surface here that sits up against the face of the rotor and put a little bit of anti-seize compound on it. Just a real thin coating. Should help get them off next time. We got the wheels back on, the car's back on the ground, lug nuts are tightened to spec. We come up with 90 foot-pounds, but like I said, better check for yourself on your car. Make sure we got it right. One thing that's left to do is get in, start it up, pump up the brakes a few times, take it for a spin around the block, make sure everything's good, as it should be. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, subscribe to my channel. I'll keep making them. Thanks for watching.